business session to order. We'll go ahead and we'll stand and we'll have our moment of silence and our pledge of allegiance. If you don't mind standing, we'll have our moment of silence. Thank you for that. We're supposed to have a 4-H member here to lead us in pledge. Matthew Bird, is he here? I don't understand. So we'll go ahead and we'll just say it here then. Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for that. That brings us down to the public input portion. Do we have anybody? Nobody on public input tonight. So we're quickly moving to changes to the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda tonight? All right. Hearing none, is there a move to approve the agenda? So, got a move by Danny to approve the agenda, second by Paul. Discussion? All those in favor of approving the agenda, show by raising your right hand. Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, may I mention, please make sure we keep getting complaints from our audio visual lady that the recordings don't pick up our voice, so could you make sure you talk into the mics, please?
Thank you. All right. Brings us to the consent agenda. Is there anything with the approval of minutes, any additions or subtractions on that before we vote on that? All right then. Is there a move to approve the minutes from the March 6th and 14th meeting and the overnight field trips?
So moved.
Have a move to approve that. Is there a second?
A second.
Moved by Doug and a second by Dawn. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, show by raising your right hand. All right, it'd be 6-4-0 again. Motion passes. Okay, that brings us down to committee reports. We don't have any policies on first reading, but we do have a couple on second reading, so I'll turn that over to Doug.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I propose adoption of the following policies as approved by the Policy Committee upon second reading. The first is policy 6.312, which is on our use of personal communication devices and electronic devices. What it does is pretty much standardize the consequences for infractions throughout the school system. What I would like to say is Chairman Cameron contacted me this morning. I guess Governor Lee signed legislation that was passed by the State House and Senate into law. We knew this was coming. We knew what was in the bill. It didn't change virtually any from the time it was first introduced. So Dr. Arnold contacted our attorney, and he feels this fully complies with that legislation. We won't know exactly until we get sample legislation from TSBA, but there might be a couple little tweaks we have to make into this down the road. But as of right now, this fully complies with the bill that was signed by Governor Lee. So with that in mind, I move that revision and the new policy 6.312 be passed.
All right, the motion has been made to approve on second reading policy 6.312. It doesn't need a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving the policy 6.312 on second reading, show by raising your right hand. That'd be 6-4, 0 against. That passes.
The next policy on second reading is policy 6.702, student clubs and organizations. What this does is gives the principal, director, and whomever they deem needs to be involved, the authority to approve clubs, new clubs on any campus in the school system, and does not allow, once a decision is made to not approve a club, there is no appeal to the school board. It also sets out very detailed criteria as to what a new club, how they need to qualify to be on our campuses. So with that in mind, I move that this be adopted by the board on second reading.
All right, motion's been made to adopt policy 6.702 on second reading. Doesn't need a second. Any discussion? All right, we'll vote. All those in favor of adopting policy 6.702 on second reading, show by raising your right hand. And that would be 6-4, 0 against. All those policies pass on second reading. And then brings us down to, or you want to say anything about the budget there, Director? I know that's coming up next week, but you want to, since we got budget committee down here,
We can speak on it now if you all have any questions. I apologize, I wasn't here during the workshop.
That's all right.
I was with budget committee at the time, but, if you all have any questions, what's been presented to you, we're happy to answer any questions this evening.
Yeah, so I've tried to get you some notes and just about your 5-year plan and how we, that definitely helps us to give an idea of what you want and we can tie things to it. I do want, so our next meeting with the budget for consideration is the 10th, and that is at 6:30.
With this board.
Yeah, with this board at 6:30. It's listed as 5:30. Just, that was on a budget, but it's posted at 6:30. So it'll be 6:30 here on the 10th. And if you want to come in, schedule any time to look at it, discuss it, if you want any individual time, I'm happy to set that up before you have to consider it. So just let me know.
All right, thank you for that. Let's see. That takes us down to the select or ad hoc committee reports. So the Joint School Board County Commission Committee, we are supposed to be, County Commission is supposed to be the host of the next Joint Commission meeting. That'll be April 17th at 6:30, I believe, Patriot Academy. We're still waiting on finalizing the agenda for that night, but hopefully it'll be a lively and spirited meeting. Building maintenance committee, you anything you want to add in on that, Paul?
We just met Tuesday night, and we had on our agenda was the traffic control duty. Dr. Arnold had actually spoke with the sheriff himself, among other police departments, and just making sure that we are within the guidelines we need to be to make sure we weren't liable for situations or any concerns that they may have. I know that he said that the sheriff, I guess it was the sheriff, am I right, had offered a couple vehicles with lights in certain areas, where they were doing some traffic duty. Also offered any other equipment we may need to maybe help out with our people that are out there doing traffic control. Is there anything else on that?
Yeah, they just mainly spoke about the, you know, Dandridge City, they can't offer any officers to help. You know, Dandridge City has 3 officers, or 2 officers, 3 school zones, just not enough help to go around. So they're really supportive to provide. I came through there today and there was state troopers are out right now. They've got an initiative going on, but our school zones were well protected today. We have a lot of people from out of town that come through and don't realize, so we really try to emphasize it, you know, with people going through and people standing in the road, whatever. We want to make sure we can make it as safe as possible.
We also discussed the maintenance needs list in the schools, and we will be having that brought up at our next maintenance committee, which will be on May 22nd at Jefferson Elementary School at 6 o'clock. Of course, everybody is invited, whether it be the public or any board members. The other thing that we had discussed at the previous meeting, and Mr. Bridgewater had brought back to me, was there was a concern for lack of speed zone flashing lights at Rush Strong and at Newmarket, being on Old AJ. The county road didn't have any other than just a sign. So we actually got prices on those that was going to be total to put both of them in installed. Also be put on, I think it was a 5-year kind of a program that included in that was a total of $32,732. So I think we're looking at maybe getting those put in at both of those schools. And I don't think, we kind of were trying to figure out if there's any other schools that needed that, and not to our knowledge. So that's all I have for the maintenance committee.
All right, thank you. What was the next meeting?
May 22nd,
Yeah.
yep, 6 o'clock.
All right. Thank y'all for that. That takes us down to unfinished business, no unfinished business. That puts us in new business here, and it looks like we've got mental health contract renewal, TISA outcomes funding, a resolution requesting permission to participate in Section 4 of the Education Freedom Act of 2025, a resolution on transportation surplus, Jefferson County employee bonus proposal with use of fund balance, and then recommendations from the Science Curriculum Adoption Committee. So, first one up, mental health contract renewal.
Chairman,
Yes,
I'd like to make a motion. I move to suspend MOU and contract renewals with all mental health providers in order for the school board members, along with the director of schools and the school board attorney, to develop an MOU for mental health providers, which we presented for approval once achieved.
Is there a second on that?
I'll second.
And that would be Doug is seconding, so it's, Paul has moved to suspend the MOU and contract renewals with all mental health providers in order for school board members, along with the director of schools and the school board attorney, to develop an MOU for mental health providers, which will be presented for approval once achieved. Your first up, Larry.
I'll try to keep my words short, although I have quite a bit. Done a lot of looking into this, and I've actually spoke with the TSBA attorney that represents us. The reason why I asked to suspend the contract renewals was, the way I look at it is, the schools are under our responsibility, and to have a contract made by another company on the stipulations that they will enter into our buildings, I don't think that that is the proper way to have it done. We don't get to dictate regulations or rules or how things should be followed when they come in. And I'll kind of just put this more maybe in a layman's term. If somebody walks into your house, if I walked into somebody's house and I said, I'm here, but this is how we're gonna run your house, it's no different. You know, I don't follow, they don't fall under my rules. I need to follow under somebody else's rules. Now, with that being said, I have several concerns that I think that we need to make sure are getting, into this MOU. Through my discussion with Ms. Trent, I found out that these therapists that we have coming into our schools, they don't get background checks done by our school district, which is very concerning to me. A lot of you know that my son has a nurse that follows him into the school. And I understand that these therapists, when they get hired by the agencies that they work for, they get their background checks done, just like my nurse. But then as for my nurse to enter the schools, they also get one done by the school system. But this is not happening with these therapists. Concerning part to me would be, I don't allow a nurse to go into any room with my child unsupervised, let alone lock the door, close the door. A lot of these nurses that we have, I know very well. You get to know them after a while. You're talking about a therapist who maybe a parent's met them once or twice, and you're talking about a child at anywhere from kindergarten through 12th grade, stepping into a closed doors atmosphere with an adult. If I was a parent, I would have a lot of problems with that. I don't think that that's proper. I don't think it's very responsible for a school system like us to allow that to happen. I also know that we're having therapy sessions for students in the gen ed setting that are not special ed children or kids that have BIPs, which is a behavioral intervention plan. They don't, an IEP is an individual education program. These are children that may, due to their disabilities, may have behavior issues, stuff like that. We're talking about just gen ed setting students and who, for whatever reason, end up having to be referred to these mental health agencies and are seen by them during school time. After speaking with the attorney, he said absolutely no way should that ever be happening. It should not be happening in our schools as far as therapy sessions. There should be offices that these mental health agencies have that, if it happens, it should be done on their grounds, not our grounds. He was pretty adamant about not having general therapy sessions inside our school. Another thing that I've been told 2 years ago, I sat out here when this subject came up, was the convenience that it has for the students and the parents. I'll just tell you, it is, I have a child that has 20 specialists. Nothing's convenient. As a school system, we don't have a physiatrist, a cardiologist, pulmonologist. We don't have any specialists that I can take my child to make it convenient for me or my family or my wife to be able to be seen within the school. I wouldn't expect the school system to do that. These are medical treatments that is being performed in the therapy sessions. No different than any other kind of medical treatment that would be performed on a child outside at a doctor's office. Let me see what else. Also speaking with the attorney on that, he said no way should that be ever used for a convenience purpose. Parents have a parental duty to make sure that the child gets the proper medical attention necessary. It's not the responsibility of the school district. And that's kind of the same, what I've been trying to kind of reiterate there. when I was talking to Ms. Trent, I asked her what the problem was trying to fix or accomplish and what they were brought in for. And, you know, I was told that it was an attempt to lessen behavior issues and be supportive of the teachers. I requested a behavior incident, bullying incident report, and so I got it, so I did my own work and got it. And I don't see these incidents declining, which we were told 2 years ago that was supposed to do. In fact, I couldn't print it because every time I tried to print it, there were so many school districts, I couldn't read the school districts. But I'd be happy to pass this around, but I broke this all down per year, and we have gradually been increasing to a staggering 196 incidents last year being reported. We're probably on the average about 100 more incidents a year than Hamlin County, who I have been looking into and finding out, unless they've just recently brought in their own mental health agency. We're about 100 on average more incidents a year. Now they have 2 high schools, and they have all their populations more, their student body I would imagine is more than us, Hamlin County. And I'm kind of asking, I don't know, but when I see that many more and a continual rise over the years since 2019 when this therapy group came in, I start questioning whether or not it's actually getting done, their purpose of being in our schools. I can keep going on with more things. I don't know if anybody has any questions up to this point. Other thing that I have kind of concern is, and I would just say, I'm not a kid in school today. I'm glad I'm not. I know they deal with a lot of stuff. But if these children need to be seen that bad, we have a current wait list of 67 kids on a waiting list to be seen. Why don't we have these kids, or why are they not being opted out to go see some other therapist somewhere? And to know that we have 67 kids that if they really need this kind of treatment that bad, and we're okay with them sitting on a waiting list, that also bothers me. The first year that the company came in, they saw 175 students. It jumped the next year to 450, then to 456, then to 511. I mean, you can kind of see the staggering way it keeps inclining. Over the course of a year and a half, from January 23rd through March of 25, they've seen 686 kids, which is roughly about 10% of our student body. And that's staggering to me, that many kids need mental health therapy. I don't know if it's really being done. I know that they get referrals. Once they get referred, they, I would say, are labeled with anxiety, ADHD, whatever it is. My first question would be, if we have this many kids being labeled, I hate kids being labeled to begin with. All it does is give them a crutch for the rest of their life. Why they can't perform, why they can't do things, why they can't pay attention. It's comparable to if you think you sprained your ankle, you walk into a doctor's office. Once you find out it's broke, suddenly you can't walk on it. And I think we're doing that to our kids. And it makes me wonder if we have that many kids needing to be seen, do they display these same kind of behaviors and diagnosis at home? If a kid has ADHD and he's labeled that, he goes home and he sits on Xbox for 3 hours. I'd probably say the kid doesn't have ADHD. I'd probably say that there's something going on in the classroom that keeps him from paying attention. Maybe what he's eating, maybe a lack of patience on a teacher, that things that he misbehaves. These are kids. Nobody has a perfect kid. Just because they misbehave, we label them and send them off to a therapist. And I don't think that's right. I think we need to start showing a little more patience. I also think it starts at home with parents, maybe being a little more accountable for their children's actions. So I'm not blaming the school system, but it makes me wonder if we're kind of producing the environment for these kids in the school classroom setting and the way they behave. I mean, I have to see 10% of our student body in a year and a half. That's a pretty staggering number. 2 years ago, when this all came up, we were told by the, I guess she was the director down there, Miss Allison Peak, that they don't facilitate classes. And I know for a fact that 2 years ago at Patriot, January 20th, 2023, a therapist named Kayla Owens actually facilitated a class at Patriot. Since then, I've had 2 parents that have contacted me. One was also a Patriot. I don't know if it was that same day. And I had another parent that said it happened at one of the middle schools. Being told that they don't facilitate a class and then it happening kind of sits with me wrong. I don't like that. Another thing is we were told that they don't report out core subject areas such as science, math, English. And I can tell you for a fact that they do. After speaking with Ms. Carrie Trent, she said, you know, they may get pulled out of a subject they excel in. So let's take a kid out of an area just because they excel in science. We're going to remove them from that class to go have a therapy session, which shouldn't be happening in our schools to begin with. When I was running for school board, I knocked on a lot of doors. I knocked on one that was in January during the snowstorm, and he said, man, I used to be a science teacher. And I said, oh, would you mind me asking why you no longer work for the system and for the district? I was kind of waiting to hear about it being money or something like that. He said, I'm going to be honest with you. He said, I can't teach my kids. They keep not showing up for class when they're there. They go see a therapist or whatever it is that they have instilled in the schools. He said, and then half the time they have a therapist sitting in the back of my classroom, which is just as disruptive as a student not being there. When I spoke to the attorney about that, he said that these therapists shouldn't be doing any of that kind of stuff. They shouldn't be walking in any classroom for observation or anything like that. You know, these are just some of the points that I have that really make me wonder, you know, why do we have them in our schools? You know, if I'm being told one thing 2 years ago and I'm finding out things aren't that way, basically being lied to, I start getting I start losing trust in certain people. I'd like to think that was maybe a one-time occurrence. Maybe they came in with the right intention, and over time, you know, things get a little soft, there's not a lot of oversight, you know, I can maybe accept that a little bit, but I think by creating an MOU that we create and we mandate how and where and what's going to take place in our schools is the right way to do it. I'll leave it at that for right now.
Doug, you seconded it, so you're.
Yeah, I just have a couple questions. First of all, what were the real concerns? You know, I was listening to you and you were kind of interweaving your opinions with the attorney. What stood out? You mentioned you spoke to 2 attorneys, the TSBA attorney and our board attorney.
Yes.
What were when you explained the situation as we have it now, what were their major concerns? And did they both agree on these?
They both had the same opinion, and they both said it was their opinion, and when I spoke to each of them individually, they both shared the same exact opinion on separate occasions, that one, we should not be having any kind of therapy sessions in our school, that having a room dedicated for that, for these therapists to basically sit in our schools all day was not okay. That was the first thing that stuck out to me, that they had both said, that was not something that was okay to do.
Now, when you say okay to do, okay meaning that's against state law, or we're accepting liability by doing that? I mean, what?
But they both felt that, our schools are for educational purposes. And if there are therapy sessions that need to be taking place, and it is no times after school, then that's up to the parent to come and get those kids and take them. Just like I said, if my child had a doctor appointment or a dentist appointment, and there was no times after, the parent goes and gets them, and they take them to the appointment. Now, they both were pretty adamant when they found that out. They were both very disturbed finding out that these therapists were sitting and, would enter a classroom and sit in the back and, for whatever purpose, I don't know what the purpose is, so I couldn't say, yeah, they're doing this or doing that. And they both said probably observation purposes, but that's not really the scope of what they're supposed to be doing, being in our school system.
You mentioned about background checks. Is that your opinion, or is their opinion that the school district needed to do our own background checks and not rely on somebody else's?
Well, they both felt that it should be something that we follow suit with if we're going to do it for the nursing, and they agreed that it should be done for nursing, that it should also be done for anybody else that comes into our schools that's going to do any kind of therapy session, or any other type of person that has access to our students.
And I guess my last question would be, you mentioned MOUs versus contract. In my mind, memo understanding is usually between individuals. A contract is usually between two, like a public entity, for example, the school district and an outside vendor. Are you indicating that you feel that we should go the MOU route, where each person coming into the school signs a memo of understanding stating that they know what they can and can't do when they come into the school, or we do that, or we actually continue with a contract with a outside provider? I'm a little confused there.
So when I spoke with the attorney about that, in my thinking was contract you need for monetary agreement. And he said that's not always that way, but you definitely, if there's money exchanged, then you definitely would need it to be a contract. Having an MOU, he said once you start getting into, you take away the money and it's more of an agreement on how terms are to be agreed upon. He said you could put contract or MOU, it's really becomes one and the same. But the MOU is, so it would be the companies sign the MOU, and each individual therapist, nurse, or whoever comes into the schools, they also have their own MOU, which is the same MOU, but they would sign individually an MOU so that they understand all of the rules and terms that they're coming in. A contract would be really just signed by the agency, and then it'd be up to the agency to kind of dictate what's in that contract to the individual that's coming into the school. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Did the attorney indicate that there was any situation where, like in an emergency or something, where somebody who is not actually on staff at the school could come in and calm the situation down or anything like that? Would that be okay or not, or what?
Yeah, so when you're talking about emergency crisis, and you know, maybe I should have kind of started my things. I'm not trying to completely disband what's going on. I understand there's emergency crisis goes on. I understand there's students with, you know, an IEP, which is an individualized education program. I understand that, you know, they may have these written in their IEPs or the BIP.
IEPs.
IEP.
What is that?
It's an individualized education program.
Oh, okay.
And what that is when you have a child in the special, with special needs, whether it be autism or any kind of, I mean, it could be anything as far as poor hearing, or somebody might have one that's, you know, autistic or some kind of disability, then it's it's kind of a contract at which the school will abide by certain terms on how this child will receive services. I mean, it gets really involved. My child at one point had one that was over 40 pages long. That's kind of uncommon, but you know, it's kind of an agreement between agreement between parents and the school system on how their child will be given services, basically.
And my last question, and I'll be quiet, because I'm just asking questions to make sure I understand where this is going. Does your motion indicate that you would want to suspend any agreements immediately, or we would do that after this school year for the next school year?
Yeah, no, so we have a current contract with them right now, with whoever's in there. And, you know, I don't think that it would be right. You know, a contract's a contract. We need to see the contract through. And I think it comes up at the end of June 30th.
With which company?
Well, I know I think it's,
We have Cherokee Health, sets up on our campus at Rush Strong, occasionally. And, Helen Ross McNabb has people that are in our schools, and Allied Behavioral Health has people in our schools. So, especially Helen Ross McNabb and Allied Behavioral Health, both are contractors that serve students in our schools.
and the contract's end June 30th? Because I know typically it starts.
Usually.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
that is
and,
my
and I'm not trying to avoid any contracts. You know, I'm not trying to get any void.
So you would let the contracts in place run their course?
Yeah, start, you know, tomorrow, but we're still abiding by contracts.
That was my
You know,
question.
I'm not trying to get rid of the contracts, but I think, you know, I also know that these companies need some time to get a contract so they know, that, you know, I guess, for whatever purpose they need them in advance. I think that this gives us some time to work out an MOU on our end with them, and not with them, but with the attorney and director of schools, to kind of, you know, find what we allow and what we don't want, and then, you know, once that's done, we can come back and vote on it as a board.
Okay.
You're saying MOU, are we gonna ask Dr. Arnold to kind of head this up to see what he can do, or are we gonna be involved with it? What are you asking?
Well, I definitely want Dr. Arnold part of it. I think that he definitely needs part of it. Obviously, the attorney for the language part of it and the legality parts of it. And then, you know, to me, if every board member wants to be part of that, that's why I didn't write a board or a certain amount. If everybody wants to show up and work on that, I'm fine with that. I encourage it, because I think that if we all have some input of what we like, don't like when we're all together, then if there's only two that show up and they create this MOU with the attorney and with Dr. Arnold, and then we present it to the board, and two don't like what's in it or want this changed, then we have to go right back to the drawing board and recreate it. So I would highly encourage all the board members to be part of this process too.
I do want to advise one thing. You only have one attorney who represents you. Other attorneys can advise, but Scott Bennett is your only representation. you can get an opinion from TSBA or whatever, but they do not represent you as far as, if needed. Only Mr. Bennett would be your representation.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes,
how many MOUs are we looking at here that have to be negotiated?
I have, so this is new information to me, so I was not, nothing was in the packet.
Right.
You know, I'm not privy to anything, tonight, any of this information, so, I would have to dig into it. I've not talked to the attorneys. I don't have that information. I'd have to study this.
Any of the companies that are involved, is there a contract in place now, honestly?
There is.
And is there money involved
There is no money involved.
with any of those folks?
No, Helen Ross McNabb is state funded, and, the state, funds those, and they come into, some of our schools, and then, within Allied, it is, there is no money given to them as far as for their service.
So the one that you mentioned there, the state funds, would we have any control over them? No.
Well, we cannot accept that, or, you know, if we send in, so I mean, we would negotiate that with them and see if they wished, you know, if we did, it's like with anything, it's no different than painting or mowing or providing a mental health service.
Right.
If we put stipulations in there that they need to follow and they choose not to follow them, then they don't have to provide a service within our district. Any contractor, HVAC, food service, whatever it may be.
So if we get Mr. Bennett involved in these MOUs, I feel like an MOU is one, kind of like you, it was a distinction. If we approve an MOU, then it becomes a contract. That's just the way I see it. But anyway, but if we get Mr. Bennett involved in this MOU negotiation or whatever, how much does he charge an hour?
So we're under contract with Mr. Bennett, and whatever we ask of him is covered throughout the year.
So he's on a retainer.
He is.
anything else? All right.
Can I just,
Yeah.
I finish up with one thing? I sat out there 2022, and Shane Johnson at the time was our director of schools. And there was a series of different social services that were being promoted to the school board. And Shane Johnson said, you know, we're no longer, he said, I want you all to realize, we are no longer about offering educational services. We are now here to offer social services. My job items are. And I looked around and nobody even batted an eye. And that bothered me. We as a school district are not about a child's social services. We're here to provide educational services. If a child needs mental therapy, there's places they can go. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think, Commissioner Mayor, you have a list that you were working with somebody in May. I don't know if it's already been implemented, a list of providers.
Yeah, I do. One that I started contacting Tommy about to see if we have a list of providers that can be provided to parents so they have options, simple options. And it should have been emailed to all of the board members. And so this isn't an end-all kind of thing. We can add more, you know, and basically it provides the options to the reach out to any kind of, provider to ask any questions that they want to see what will be a better fit for their student.
Thank you. You know, I really think that if we were to get back to educational services, and everybody talks about literacy rate, I think our goals are way too low. I think if we get back to start providing educational services and get off of the social services trip that everybody's been on, all these school districts, maybe our literacy rate will start going up. I'm tired of hearing about low literacy rates across the state. You know, and I don't know what we are compared to, you know, other counties, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't really care. I think our goal should be 100%. And if what's holding us back are social services, and this being one of them, then maybe we ought to start thinking about how to get these kids up to 99% and still try to find out why that one kid or that 1% didn't hit 100%. So.
I don't know where to go with this one. I mean, I see what you're talking about, I understand, but I haven't taught school, you know, I've had kids over the years that needed some guidance. Really did. If they want to help on the score or whatever, would have been help. I was just, without, I can't do that as a classroom teacher. You know what I'm talking about, you can't get into that. And so sometimes you get a lot of discipline problems, and then you just deal with discipline problems. There's kids that need help. And you talked about a list, that's great. We give it out to parents, but it is convenient for it to take place in school because some parents don't have transportation to get their kids to come and pick them up or whatever. There's some problem. Now, it may get out of hand, but I don't think we can do away with it totally. We need that service in our schools and for our students. It may get overgrown, I don't know. But I know in years past, I've been in some hairy situations and nobody to turn to. It was just me, you know? And you have a kid that threaten you, I won't mention the threat, but what do you do? These services that are being provided, I think scheduling could help and does help with that, and the kids are not missing that much class time as such. And there's students that need that, they really do need some counseling. And if we don't do it, I know it's getting to do a lot of socials, but if we don't do it, who's going to do it? You know, they fall through the cracks. And they need somebody to talk to besides the teacher and even parents. I don't know about y'all, I found it very difficult sometimes to talk to my parents about some issues I was having at school. You know, so a third party can be more objective. I'm seeing a student as a discipline problem, right? And because they're acting out in class or doing things or, you know. And so if I deal with that, I have to take them to the office, or had to take the office. I'm out in my classroom. I'm not getting to teach the other 29 or whatever. But with somebody available in the school that can be immediately on hand to deal with this problem, and deal with this child, and talk to this child, I think if you could, that's just my opinion, life's experience. And not demeaning parents, but sometimes it's just not feasible even to leave their child during the day and take the child to, some kind of therapy. Because they've got to work, buy food and stuff. I don't know, if we can help in the school system as much as we can, and I think we need to. That's just me.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything in Mr. Hardy about doing away. I see it more as kind of clarifying guidelines, you know, and if Mr. Bennett, who Mr. Hardy said he spoke to, has some legal concerns, I think we need to explore those. As long as what's in place now, you know, we don't do away with the contract or MOU or whatever you want to call it that's in place for this school year. So I would definitely, as long as that's understood, that we would keep what's in place now until the end of this school year. I think it would be very appropriate for us to take a look at, you know, what kind of guidelines we want to set forward. Like you said, you know, it's our house, you know, we need to set the rules, and, you know, maybe after we look at it, the rules that we set will be much different than what we have now. But I think we need to look at it, so I'm going to vote yes on your motion. Thank you.
Anything else?
Okay.
Yeah.
About how many hours have kids missed each year or collectively? Do we have a figure on that?
Well, I would, are you speaking to me?
Whoever can answer, for going to mental health services. That's what I'm wondering.
So I do actually have figures on that.
Okay.
Do you want it broken down by year, or do you want it to?
Sure. A
So
year.
up to the end of the 23-24 school year, 23,255 hours were spent for mental health therapy sessions.
Over 23,000,
Yes,
over 23,000
hours.
In this district?
in this district.
Yes,
in
between,
1 year?
no, up to, from 2019 through 2024,
Okay.
5 years.
Wow.
And I can break those down individually if you need me to.
Okay. That's all right. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, please. I move to postpone this to our next meeting. I don't have the date. If you give, I'd like for the date to be in the minutes. What is it, like May or something, right? And our next business session, not special call, but our next
May
business.
first.
Huh?
May
May
first.
1st, I move to postpone this to May 1st, after hearing what the director had to say. You can call off guard a little bit and maybe provide us with more information.
May first until what? What'd you
The work session?
Do what?
No, you said.
No, to our next business session. How we could do it at the work session, that might be better. Whatever date that is.
Work session would be
Yeah, more-
April 28th.
Yeah, let's go that route. Good idea, thank you, Doug. Thank you.
All right, let's see. Is there a second on that?
If I second, can I make a comment?
Yes, sir. You're seconding?
Yes.
Okay,
You know, what Mr. Hardy said, I'm fully behind him. I do think we can make some changes, I really do. And, you know, I agree with you, you've done a lot of study on this. You've got your numbers. And like Doug said, you know, we don't want to do away with mental health. That's something I feel like we do need in school. Even Coach has commented that when he taught, that's something that he couldn't teach his class if we didn't have help like that. So this is something I feel like we do need to sit down and discuss. But I understand what you're saying, and I'm not turning you down at all because I agree with a lot of what you're saying. Maybe we do need to make some HOUs.
I think our participation in this, we can improve the system, I honestly do. But I don't think tonight would be the time to do that, see. The director's kind of, I'm called off guard, you've got the information, but I don't, and the director too, so I postponed this. I'm not trying to delay it, I'm not playing a game here. I need more information, I think we all do. And the director we can discuss it at the next business session, put it on the next work session, put it on the agenda at the next business session, and not get too far behind, and have more information, and we oversee the process, yes. I have no problem with that at all.
I don't mind putting it on the next, what do you put on the business or the work session?
Work.
My problem is between now and then, we sign a contract, then we're bound to it for next year. A contract that we didn't create, that we're sticking to somebody else's contract by their rules. That's the problem I have. I'd be okay with majority of the board decided they wanted to put it on the next one. I would be opposed to a contract being signed between now and then. Defeats the whole purpose of the vote. I will just kind of say, yes, I do have a lot of information. Also information that I requested a week ago, that it took me one phone call and an hour later that I got. But I was told it would take at least a week before I could get this information. And that's disturbing to me. Why do I have to work so hard to get information? And I'm not telling the director down the road. He's been, anytime I ever call him, he calls me back. Anytime I need information, I ask him this morning for two pieces of information, and I had it by 2 o'clock. Somebody else was put in charge of it. I still haven't gotten it. That would have been very crucial for me to have it. And I had to do the legwork. It took me all day before I finally got a hold of somebody. But with all that being said, I still don't want to have a contract signed because otherwise all this is useless until next year.
I think if somebody wanted to, then you could, make an amendment to that postponement with the stipulation that there is no contract signed in between here and there. If that's something, that's just, I'm just throwing that out there. I know you're putting that, you're on that.
Mr. Chairman, that is a subsidiary motion. I don't think you could do that to that motion. The motion I made is basically putting off this motion, give us a specific date. You can't do it. You need to really vote it up or down.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't. That's why I didn't amend it.
Mr. Chairman,
We have to vote for that motion
Yeah.
and approve it or not.
may I speak to this, to the amendment?
Sure.
Yeah, well, I'm asking him, not you.
Oh, okay. Well, you're looking at me.
No,
Well,
I thought
because
thought
you
you
made the
talking to me.
amendment.
no, he didn't make an amendment, he moved to postpone.
Almost not. Okay, I used the wrong term, I apologize. To me, all we're doing in this meeting, if we were to pass Mr. Hardy's motion, is say, let's talk about this a little bit more, let's let things run the way they are right now to the end of the year, and then talk about it. I don't think delaying this until our next month is gonna do anything that passing this motion wouldn't do anyway. We're gonna be getting all of this information, and we're not gonna be voting again on it until we all have it, we all understand it, we all discuss it. So I think Mr. Hardy's motion, if we vote on that tonight, obviously we're going to get the information he has, we're going to get more information that we need while we're discussing it. And we're not going to vote on it again until we all understand what we're going on. I just think that's kicking the can down the road for no reason at all.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yeah.
It wasn't in the packet. I mean, I've caught off guard here. I had no idea what that was. There was nothing, I can't vote for this tonight. I'm sorry. I probably would in the future, but I didn't have any time to study your information that you have, and look at it and that kind of thing. So I can't, that's the reason why I made the motion I did, but if you don't, I said, I'm not gonna be mad.
I didn't mean to bark at you, you know.
Yeah, I know, but
Dawn.
I agree, first of all. I do have a quick question, actually a couple questions for you, Tom. Who do we currently have contracts with that are going to be expiring during summer or something like that?
For mental health services,
Yes, yes.
I believe that is Allied Behavioral Health and Helen Ross McNair.
Maybe, okay. I would like to see those contracts too. When do they expire?
June 30th, I believe is the date. I'll have to look to verify, but I believe that is the date.
And according to the stipulations of those contracts, don't we have to also be able to provide a 30-day notice that we are not going to be renewing? Because if that's,
Yeah, I can review that. I can send you that contract.
because if
Also.
that is the case, my concern with pushing this to May 1st is going to really encroach in that window really bad. We're gonna lose our options to decide what to do at that point. So, I personally feel like pushing it off another month is like Doug explained, there's just no point. We're gonna get the information either way. That's my
And
So by voting for this, doesn't mean we can't put it on the work agenda, you know, and talk about it at the work agenda. Someone can put it on the business agenda, however they want to, and deal with it then. This is, right now, this is securing that we're not gonna sign another contract until we work on the MOU, and then, but somebody can put it on the work agenda, we can have a lot more, you know, lengthy discussion with it. It's not saying that this is a done deal. I mean, somebody can come up with the next meeting, in the business meeting, and do it. We could kind of talk about it again at the work session. So, you know, this is not a done for all. We can't talk about it anymore. This isn't saying they're no longer gonna be in there, you know, tomorrow. They will still do the services that they've been contracted, or they've contracted us to do, until June 30th. What this is doing is just preventing a contract between now until we create an MOU. We talk about it at the work session, somebody wants to put on a business session and say, I vote, you know, whatever you guys decide to do. I'm not gonna say a motion, but if somebody wants to put it on there to renew them, then we put it up for vote then, but, I'm not gonna be for postponing this, because I just got done watching 3 months get wasted away on a Jefferson Elementary project where we could have a lot more stuff done and progress into it. And I'm done as a board member sitting here spinning my wheels in the mud. And that's why I feel.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
You've spoke twice, I'll let you go one more, and then we're gonna.
Well, everybody else has spoken more than twice, I'm sorry.
No, I'm talking about on this motion to postpone. All right. We have a motion to postpone the motion that was made previously, so, Coach made the move to postpone the April 28th work session. All those in favor of postponing, show by raising your right hand.
Is it too late to ask the question?
We're already
Okay.
one. All those opposed to postponing, fails. So then that gets us back to the original motion. I'm gonna read it again because I think some people have brought this up. Move to suspend MOU and contract renewals with all mental health providers in order for the school board members, along with the director of schools and school board attorney, to develop an MOU for mental health providers, which will be presented for approval once achieved.
So, we can put this on the agenda for the next meeting to discuss, bring up the,
Yeah, you can talk about it.
okay. I mean, as long as we can discuss more of what we're talking about. I don't want to do away with mental health right here and now. I want to talk about it, I want to discuss it, because we do.
That's what my motion
And I'm
is
fine
not
with
there
it.
for that, it's just to make sure we don't sign a contract till we, and my hopes was to work with the director and board member and the attorney to develop an MOU and put the ball in our court on how things are gonna be done. You know, somebody can put it on the work, and I figured somebody would encourage you, if you guys, if anybody wants more information. You know, I work very hard at trying to get information, and I did get a lot from whatever I asked. There was a few times that I really had to work hard. There wasn't time to put anything, this is all within this solid week.
As long as we have Dr. Arnold and our attorney involved in whatever we do, I'm okay, as long as we're working with Dr. Arnold.
I do want to say that the information you requested is in my inbox to review, with Ms. Trent, who you requested it from, who was out today, who was investigating stuff yesterday, and I've not had the opportunity to review and make sure. The last thing I want to do is to bypass my office with information and then give it to you, and you ask questions, and I have no clue what you're talking about. So that is in she has provided that information. That information comes from previous supervisors, previous years. Some of it is in E-Plan or in a platform. Some of it's in somebody's file somewhere. So I do have that information. And if you tell me, if you call me at whatever time and you say, hey, I need this, I'll get it for you. But I didn't realize that you needed information for tonight's meeting that you were going to discuss. So I didn't have a rush on it.
Well, that's why I said I didn't want to sound like I'm throwing you down the river, and not even in her. I asked other things about, you know, specific things that Ms. Trent and I did get provided with that, and I do appreciate everything. There was that one thing that when I got an email saying that it may be to the end of the week or something, you know, I just started making phone calls to the know people in certain places. I want to talk about the state level, and you know, got forwarded something where I've been able for just the past about 36 hours be able to review. So that's why I said this information, I wasn't even able to put a lot of this information out I couldn't even print it out. You know, I tried to print it out, but you know, I can try to do more to get more information in a print form versus handwriting. But you know, I know that we are, in the past, the school district has always, within the first 2 weeks of April, renewed contracts, and being inundated with other agenda items for the past 7 months. You know, I would like to have put this on last month to talk about it more. It just didn't happen.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to call the question.
All right, question's been called. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of voting on, of the question being called and proceeding to vote, show by raising your right hand. 5, 4, Coach is a nay, so. Question's been called, and we'll proceed to vote on this motion. Read again. Motion's been made to suspend the MOU and contract renewals with all mental health providers in order for school board members, along with the director of schools and the school board attorney, to develop an MOU for mental health providers, which will be presented for approval once achieved. All those in favor of this motion show by raising your right hand. That'll be 5-4 opposed. And that'll be 1 opposed. Motion passes. And Danny has requested that information be added to the work session agenda. Alright. Now we are at PISA Outcomes Fund, and if you don't mind real quick, could you talk about that real quick, PISA Outcomes?
Sure. So that money's already been approved to be in the budget. So basically, I just want you to see the plan to expend those funds. It's very similar to the way we spent the money last year. We received a little bit less money this year than last. So a few items were removed. So basically, you're looking at a little bit of CTE money, some tutors, and instructional assistants for early grades to like for you to consider that plan for TISA Outcomes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move that the proposal for the use of TISA outcomes money be accepted as presented, so that these monies continue to support the programs that generated these funds.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Danny seconded. Move that the proposal for the use of TISA Outcomes money be accepted as presented, so that these monies continue to support the programs that generated the funds. Discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of the move that the proposal for the use of TISA Outcomes money be accepted as presented, so that these monies continue to support the programs that generate these funds, show by raising the right hand. The 6-4, 0 against, motion passes. Next, resolution requesting permission to participate in Section 4 of the Education Freedom Act of 2025. You want to say anything?
So this is just a requirement to be able to receive those bonuses. We stated it's not an agreement to, it's, as it states in the resolution itself, it's just a requirement to receive those bonuses for what the state refers to as teachers.
And let me say this too, Dr. Arnold reached out to JCEA, after we kind of got the feeling that they all sort of agreed and approved what the resolution was there. So, we wanted to see what they thought. I mean, we did oppose the voucher bill, but they all agreed that nobody wanted to stand in the way of any teachers getting the bonus. So, is there a motion on the resolution requesting permission to participate in Section 4 of the Education Freedom Act of 2025?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the resolution number 2025-139, requesting permission to participate in Section 4 of the Education Freedom Act of 2025.
Is there a second? I'll second it. Any discussion? All those in favor then of approving the resolution requesting permission to participate in Section 4 of the Education Freedom Act of 2025, show by raising your right hand. That would be 6-4, 0 against, motion passes. Then we have a resolution on transportation surplus. Is there a motion for that?
So moved.
Mr. Edson's moved to approve the resolution for the transportation surplus. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Dawn, second. Any discussion?
Just information purposes, are these all from our bus department, transportation department, these surplus? vehicle.
I mean,
Yes,
you say it,
they are.
yes.
They are, okay, thank you.
Anything else? All right, then, all those in favor of approving the resolution for transportation surplus, show by raising your right hand. Be 6-4, 0 against, motion passes. Next on the agenda, Jefferson County employee bonus proposal with use of fund balance. Is there a motion? You wanna say anything about that, or?
So,
You hand down the paper, Larry.
I handed a sheet of paper that deals with a $500, $250. Some of you maybe did not get to see this. You may have seen a $600, $300 classified bonus. And then there's also, whenever the state gives the $2,000 bonus to teachers, not all, in order to be in that category, you have to have a license, and you have to spend the majority of your day instructing students. So we figured 75 people did not do that in the district. That's a safe guess. It's not going to exceed that number. So roughly it would take right at $500,000 of fund balance to be able to give all employees a bonus for next fiscal year. We ask that, that's totally up to you, as far as that goes, but whenever I came in to be a director, I did mention that I feel it's important that if you give a bonus, you budget a bonus. It's not something that, December the 3rd, we decide we want to give a bonus and someone make a motion and move forward. It's important to budget those items.
Just point of clarification, are we voting on the one that was in the packet, the $600 bonus or the $500 bonus?
That is up to you, but I would recommend the one that I handed out to you that is $500, $250, that is highlighted in yellow up top, just based on the amount and what we have to come up with. I feel like that is more in our capabilities.
So just,
I got one in, we'll get you.
so just to clarify, if we approve this, this will come out of our fund balance. And this will cover probably not to exceed 75 staff members, correct? And that will cover everything by doing that?
Oh, sorry, I've got yours.
That's all right,
So, this is the number of hourly employees here. And that would be the amount to cover all hourly employees. And this would be the amount to cover teachers that are not covered under the state bonus.
yeah, and that's what I meant.
Yes.
Yeah, I knew this and that's covered that, but this bottom line includes both of them. and this.
Yes, that is correct. So roughly there is $335,000 to cover hourly employees, and there is roughly $1.1 million to cover licensed certified employees. Some of it's from fund balance, the remaining is from the State Department.
Yes, how much money is in our fund balance? If you take away the money that was allocated for the remodeling of Jeff Elementary School, I know the county commission has not passed or acted on that, but it is obligated.
Roughly $2.3 million, roughly. You okay with that number?
Roughly.
Roughly. They have pennies and dollars and
No,
roughly 2.3 million.
I like roughly better.
Yeah.
So, if we take away from that, I have, $500,000.
1.8-ish.
Okay, okay. And our fund balances, what is it down to now? If we,
So
it would go from, if you approve this, it would go from 2.3 to 1.8. And then there may be, then come next October, there may be a $2 roll or a $2 million roll into the fund balance, I don't know.
We're not gonna guess.
Somewhere, there'll be somewhere in there.
So what the state is doing is mandating bonuses,
The state is offering that bonus.
well, that commodity, but
Yeah.
still, it's not enough to cover everybody in our system.
Yeah, it is not for hourly employees, and it's not for certified employees that are not in direct instruction as students.
And we have teaching positions over there or not.
Guidance
We also does
counselors,
limit as far as funding.
so that was in the BEP, this is different, TISA is different, as far as positions outside of the BEP, like it used to be. So TISA is a per student, it's based on students and not positions funding.
Okay. That's good,
All right.
thank you.
Is there a motion on this?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I move that we accept the bonus for classified staff as presented at $500 for full-time classified, $250 for part-time classified, and $2,000 per certified staff not covered by TNDOE.
All right, is there a second on that?
I'll second that.
All would second that, so Doug's made a motion that we cover the cost of a bonus for classified staff at $500, $250, and cost of a bonus for certified staff not covered by the Tennessee Department of Education at a total of $505,742.50 for fund balance. Is there any discussion? I think we shall do it. All right, then, all those in favor of that motion show by raising your right hand. We got 6, nothing. Motion passes. And that brings us down to the recommendations from Science Curriculum Adoption Committee. Want to say anything on that before we?
I just want to praise our teachers, the parents, citizens who were on the committee that put forth time. Also supervisors that oversaw, directed, brought them together. Ms. Mayor was there. It is time consuming and it's not over. Once that new curriculum is adopted, there's a large workload that goes into implementation of that. So I do want to also commend the board. Just over the past few years, reading, math, and now science is coming before you. Putting these tools in front of teachers to be able to provide this education to students is important. Getting it to them in a timely manner is very important. You know, I remember being in the classroom in August whenever school started, sometimes in September, whenever I first started teaching. But we would be using last year's material until the textbooks for the current year came in. So it's very important to get them in their hands. We also have teachers that are volunteering to come in to gain an understanding of the new curriculum on their own time and dime. So that's very rewarding too, that they put forth that effort for our students.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes.
I move to approve the elementary school recommendation for McGraw-Hill and the high school recommendations for McGraw-Hill and Kendall Hunt for the current adoption cycle.
You have that written down. Is there a second on that? Is there a second? Any discussion on that one?
actually have a question.
Yeah.
Cause I was talking to somebody too, and, the Sabbath, the Sabbath, or however it's pronounced, you know, these are just recommended, right? These are just a committee that's recommended, made public, and school employees.
So, yeah, this is a year-long process. It begins at the state level, and these people, these companies qualify their materials. And once they're qualified, then it comes to the local level, and, our employees who specialize in this area, so, our science teachers, then come together, and we had some citizens that were a part of the committee, and they reviewed all the materials, and this is their recommendation from the committee to you for textbook adoption.
Okay. Do we know if there's actually gonna be actual textbooks that we'll be buying with these? Or is this computer class, more on computers, or?
So in high school, they want class sets, so they're not gonna buy per student or assign a textbook, but they'll have a print copy in their classrooms to be used.
Okay.
And then also, all of them come with online materials, so they can also access the materials online. Middle school also has print copies, and elementary as well. So they'll be able to have books in their hands and online access.
So they won't be taking the textbooks home, right? They'll be for like in class, and then as students come through, they can use the textbook if they need.
I would say especially in high school, they will not be taking the textbooks home. They will be able to use the print in their room and have access to all materials online to do their assignments. Middle school and elementary may take their textbooks home.
Okay. And how long will it be before they, I think, would it be like 6 years or something like that before we go back through this process for science?
They've changed it to a 8-year process.
Okay, so even if we were to buy something, we would be using the same text for 8 years, right?
Correct.
I noticed, well, so, this process kind of new to me, so this may be a dumb question. So Commissioner Mayor had made a motion and left out the middle school. But these things that we need to adopt, like she didn't do the middle school one, and I actually don't have a problem with that. I've never really been keen with that curriculum. Is that something that we sent them back to do, to look at the curriculum again? Is that something that we have to adopt a new curriculum? I mean,
My understanding, it is the board's duty to adopt curriculum. It is not your duty to purchase curriculum, but it is your duty to adopt curriculum.
okay. So I'm just, I guess what I'm asking then is, you know, I see a lot of the McGraw-Hill, except for middle school. I heard her speak the other day about McGraw-Hill being very desirable compared to a lot of the other ones. And just like, it worries me when I see a whole different curriculum book being used for like middle school only. And I guess that's probably why you did not have that information.
Right, I had gone there with 2 other people to review all of the curriculum, and McGraw-Hill, I really loved it. I did look through a lot of the other ones, including Sabbath, and all of the grade levels that were available, and I did not like Sabbath.
Could we approve a portion of this recommendation and exclude that one Salvis book or whatever it is? And if we do that, what has to happen is, what would that cause how would we replace that or determine what we're gonna use instead of that? I'm just trying to find out what the hardship would be of the school district and what the procedure would be to, I mean, can we approve half of the, or not half, but the majority of the proposal and exclude that one book, or not? Or do we have to do all or nothing?
I'm sure as a board, you know, you have the ability to do that. You know, I would go back and say, I mean, you know, we put a committee together of, these subject, experts, and they spend their time, taking care of this. I don't know when we could get this information back to you.
Well, that's
I
kind
mean,
of
you
what I
know,
was
we're
wondering.
entering TCAPs, so they spend a lot of time reviewing this. But if you as a board choose not to accept their recommendations, then that's up to you as a board. If you choose not to, accept the recommendations of that committee.
So the Department of Education does have certain forms that we have to turn in. There's a due date of June 30th. And one of the forms is that our chairman and director have to sign, that these are the adopted curriculum, and I do have to turn in what we adopted at every grade band. So I do have to turn in something for middle school. You know, so we'll have to choose something so that we will say that we adopted for each grade.
I guess my question is, do we have to choose, you know, it doesn't seem like there's any problem with the McGraw-Hill curriculum. There seems to be some, I haven't seen the book or the curriculum on the other one. I guess my question is could we approve the McGraw-Hill curriculum and delay approving the other one until next month's meeting, until, I mean, I don't know, did that give you enough time to get a group together and choose another book, or decide, no, this is the one we want, or?
We can do whatever my boss here tells us.
You act as a board.
No, but I'm wondering, do you have the time to get a new recommendation back to us by the next meeting?
I wonder, would you like to hear from a few of the middle school committee members? Because there are some very thorough, they very thoroughly reviewed and filled out rubrics, and they would probably be willing to share why they made that decision. And they have reviewed other materials too, so they can tell you pros and cons and, you know, what they found and why they made that decision.
I think that'd be a good, because I have no idea.
Is there any of them here now?
No.
Oh, there's not, I thought there was
No,
some.
there's nobody here now.
Oh, okay.
Danny got some.
I know the motion is on the floor. And I know we've had teachers, expert teachers, parents. I know Ms. Meyer did not really like the Sabbath, but I'm going by what the teachers feel and the experts feel. Can I make a motion to accept what they have put on?
You can make a move to amend and add the middle school curriculum.
Do that, please.
All right.
Because we have expert teachers and everything that, they've done a lot of study. And I know you was there, and I appreciate you, but I have to go by what our teachers
Yes.
and parents and everybody kind of recommend myself.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, let's see. Write this down here. All right, there's a move to amend the motion that's on the floor, to add the middle school curriculum of Savas. Is there any discussion?
If I can,
Yeah.
well, Danny gets to speak to it first, because he may have.
I'm good.
Okay. The only reason I'm doing it is I think it would present a real hardship to the school district to get this, to reevaluate that book and everything else, especially when we're under a deadline. Maybe I can request it in the future, we get these curriculum requests a little bit earlier, so if there is something like this does come up, we have time to, send it back, and I don't want to feel like I'm just a rubber stamp for this. I mean, I agree with Mr. Martin that, the teachers are the experts and all of this, but, I mean, just to save I would vote for the amendment, not for the purpose because I agree with the book, because I don't know if I do or don't, but just to save the school district the trouble of having to go back and re-review everything and reconvene the committee and then bring it back. And then I just think it's too late in the game for that when we have to present something by a certain date, and that date is quickly approaching. Thank you.
Anything else?
How long is the adoption for? Is it 4 or 5 years?
8.
8.
It is a 8-year
8
adoption.
years. Okay. Are we able to forego recommendation and put our own thing on there?
Your own curriculum?
Well, what I mean, like, I see most of them here on McGraw Hill, but could we, is there a possibility of going with McGraw Hill across the board? Is that?
Not with the
Right, right.
amendment that's on the floor right this minute.
I mean, with all due respect to the committee, I know they put a lot of work into it. And this is between 8 years, It just really concerns me, because there's no change that can be done for 8 years. Is a re-review of the materials really necessary? Anyways. Would a re-review of the materials really be necessary?
During the 8-year period?
I mean, they have reviewed, more than just the one they recommended. I mean,
Mhm.
they've done reviews, so they do have information and like rubrics and, scores for multiple, so they have a score in middle school for McGraw-Hill. It's just that, they recommended the one that scored the highest for their section, and, I mean, I could share the reviews with you so you could see the reviews. Is that what you're asking? Sorry.
I'm just wondering if it would actually have to go back to committee for that. Or if we could make a decision now.
I mean, the board adopts the curriculum. You don't have to take the committee's recommendation.
So it's only a recommendation that what they're suggesting. It's not what we have to do. And I get, a lot of us rely on committees to make recommendations so that we know. Many things that are out of our purview of knowledge and expertise. I just find it, I see McGraw-Hill on there 5 times, Kendall Hunt, which I don't have anything against. I spoke with other school board members in other districts. They kind of have the same concern as Commissioner Mayor does about the SABIS, and I think I kind of fall in line with Commissioner Mayor as far as my concern is. I have 2 concerns. One, the material that might be in there, which becomes a little more objective in a broad term versus more factual. And then it makes me wonder why all these the elementary school and high school, all adopt the McGraw-Hill, and we have the middle school who isn't. So we're going to have elementary kids that are learning in the McGraw-Hill curriculum. Jumping to the middle school is going to be a different curriculum, and then going right back into it in the high school. And that's kind of concerning for the next 8 years, we're stuck with this. You know, there wasn't much more in, you know, saying, you know, it's a red apple or a yellow apple, you know, or a green apple. It's all in the case the same as one thing. But I do think that the middle school curriculum it's not, I think you're looking at, compared to apples, I think that's an orange. And so I have the same kind of concerns as Commissioner Mayer with accepting middle school's curriculum. And I think we just need to be careful because for the next 8 years, we're stuck with that.
I'll throw my 2 cents in here. I know Coach has probably been a part of this process as a teacher. It's not exciting. It is laborious. Sometimes you get a lot of material you can review. Sometimes you get like one. And it's like, that's it? You know, the state couldn't get anything else to you besides one correct. Now, when I'm looking at this, elementary, McGraw-Hill, middle, Salvas, well, then you'll go into a totally different one if you take biology, Kendall Hunt. So there's going to be some jumping around. I know personally, the last time I approved books, which they didn't buy them for me, but we had books. I had 4 different books for 4 different subjects. I mean, I was getting what was closest to state aligned, you know, curriculum that I could. With that being said, if you pay attention to the news, the Department of Education is probably not going to exist in its current form in the next few years, and states will take up, and so within 8 years, this could all sort of change, and standards change, everything like that. I'm not sure you can get, just me personally, get anything that's going to be like, you know, 100% as close to, you know, that you want. I'm like what Doug said, that, you know, the folks on this committee here went through, and, you know, I want to put my faith and trust in them, so that's all I'm gonna say on the amendment. Is there anything else on the amendment? All right, Danny has made the move to amend the original motion and add the middle school curriculum of Salvas. All those in favor of the amendment to add the middle school curriculum of Salvas, show by raising your right hand. All right, be 4-4. All those opposed? 2 against. Motion passes to amend the previous motion. So now the previous motion reads to approve the elementary recommendation of McGraw-Hill, the middle school curriculum of Salvas, and the high school recommendations for McGraw-Hill and Kendall Hunt for the current adoption cycle. Any more discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to reiterate, in the future, please get this to us earlier. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? All right. All those in favor of approving the elementary school recommendation for McGraw-Hill, the middle school recommendation of Salvas, and the high school recommendations for McGraw-Hill and Kendall Hunt for the current adoption cycle, show by raising your right hand. All right. All those opposed? 1. Motion passes 5-1 for the curriculum approval. I'll get this to you here in just a minute. All right, that takes us down to budget amendments. We've got 2 budget amendments. Is there a motion on budget amendment for general purpose fund 141, number 14, items 1 through 3?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second? All second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of passing the budget amendment for general purpose fund 141, number 14, items 1 through 3, show by raising your right hand. All those opposed? All right, 6-4-0 against. Next, we got federal purpose fund 142, number 8, items 1 through 4. Is there a motion on this budget amendment?
So moved.
Danny has moved to approve, second.
Second.
Doug, second. Any discussion?
I do have a question.
Yes.
Item 3, where it says reallocate funds for Mountain View. What is Mountain View?
Mountain View Youth Development, Youth Detention Center.
Okay.
So we were Title I-D funds went to them. They were a private entity, so they cannot accept these funds. So they pass through us, and we control them through federal programs. So since then, Mountain View was taken back over by a state department, and Title I-D funds were removed, and we were allowed to allocate those funds on behalf of our students in the county.
So this is being accepted from Mountain View to benefit our students. Am I?
It's being reallocated from the State Department.
Right.
So these are federal funds that pass through the State Department that went through us to support the students at Mountain View.
Right.
So now Mountain View cannot receive these funds.
Okay, so they come directly to us.
Now they come directly to us for our use,
Okay.
for this year only.
That was my question. Just this year.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on this? All right, all those in favor of approving the budget amendment for Fund 142, number 8, items 1 through 4, show by raising your right hand. 6-4-0 against, motion passes. And that brings us down to scope commissioner input, and Danny, you wanna reiterate what you was wanting?
I'd just like to have more knowledge of what Mr. Hardy was talking about, just kind of put on the next work session, so we can, I mean, it's interesting, it really is. We took a lot of time, we did a lot of work, but, you know, I'd like for all of us to know what we can.
So are you looking for some sort of proposal, contract, MOU to begin to look at? I mean, of course, I'm gonna send those out to you. I'm not gonna bring them to the meeting, I'm gonna go ahead and send them out to you. I'll send out the RFQ. I think that's important to know whenever we set that RFQ, then that's our purpose for developing any contract with an agency.
I mean, just
So-
as long as we have more knowledge of what we have, and, you know, like I said, I don't wanna do away with Allied or whatever, I just want, if we need to do more, you know, to set more rules or whatever, I'm okay with that, but we just need to talk about it. I mean, RFQs is fine.
I'll go ahead and send you all the stuff we have now with Helen Ross McNabb, with Allied, and the RFQ that brought them in, or the state proposal to fund, and then also work on maybe something, you know, if you have input that you want in there, then send those to me so that I have that knowledge to develop.
Is there any way that Mr. Bennett could be at one of these meetings that we discussed this with, since he's gonna be part of the whole process? I know you can't answer.
You know, I can ask you.
Yeah.
might have some additional information that he might want to share with us.
Exactly.
Will do.
We got any more input? More announcements? We got April 10th, which is next Thursday, special call meeting for the budget. 6:30, where's, is that here?
No, I put it in the,
It is.
It is here? Okay, so
yeah.
6:30, April 10th, here in the courtroom. We'll have the special call meeting on the, for approval of the budget. Any other announcements?